This is a change to schedule, because unfortunately Greg couldn't be with us. He had a family emergency he had to go to. So, in the words of his famous compatriot, Shane Warren, who once said to me, "Is this the best you can do? I'm afraid you are stuck with me instead." I'm David Sandlands. I'm the Community and Developer Relations Lead for Puppet. And
I'm Bronach Falls. I'm a software engineer at Puppet.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about customising reporting with Puppet report processors. So, first of all, let's kind of talk about what is a report processor. So if you see, kind of seen the classic diagram, we always show, which I really should have put on the slide, where you kind of you go through the stages of sending a catalogue, applying it, you get a report back, and you often see on the diagram it has the report going off into the distance, because ultimately you can have a report processor to actually take, to transform the output of that report into something you can pass on, to another tool, or write to a file, or just generally do something more useful to. And ultimately the purpose is around, data handling, so that you automate the management of data, because I know too many Puppet setups which, are delighted they've got all this event information, but is sitting there until someone actually looks at the console, or looks at Puppet board, or something before any action's taken. It allows kind of seamless integrations, so if you're using an observability platform, it can allow you to kind of immediately send that data, whichever part of it you want to that observability platform, and then to have the right dashboards and hopefully events and actions off that observability platform. And notifications. So again, you can have report processes that go to your chat channels, or to emails, or whatever kind of is useful to you, to make sure you're actually actioning events, not just kind of waiting until you notice. So, the first step we're going to kind of show here, is that going to play? I need to press play. So, just for those who don't know, you can use PBK to happily just kind of make your module. We're going to make our relational module here. Happily just accept defaults there. And if you haven't used PBK before, that is just the default process to have a module that creates the structure. Don't play it again. In terms of the actual kind of placement of a report processor, what you see here is, we've had a module created, and under libpuppet, you create reports in relational.rb. There is no way of kind of creating that directly with the PDK just now. And in that file, I'll hand over to Bronach just to talk through the structure of what a report processor looks like.
Yes, so as David said, I'm just going to run you through the code that you need to make your processor. So first, your processor needs to be in your the Puppet reports directory in your Puppet module, and that's why you need to require Puppet at the very top of the file, because Puppet uses a processor to send report to the report to the service in whatever format you specify. The processor name has to be valid Ruby syntax. And then you put in a description, just there, process reports with relatio, just to describe what your report processor does, and that's in Markdown, so that the code's clean and readable. The processor code must also call this function, the Puppet reports register report, with the name, and that is just then it can clarify with the rest of the processor what it is. So the first thing you do is you start by defining the process that will run through, and you get a timestamp here at the start. This function calls on the self object, and that object will be a Puppet transaction report object, and that describes the Puppet run. The processor then can access the report data by calling on the self methods, and that will then be sent to any service you configure in the report processor. And this can also all be written in YAML if you specify. So down here we make the initial message of Puppet run on host environment at time status. And when we run through this, we will then just add to that by adding on the metrics in a new line with the name and the label here. There's printed out a new line each time just to make it readable. So the name property matches the name metric in your Puppet transaction report hash. and the label is just the name of the metric formatted as a title, and then the value is just the array of values, and that will be in an int or a float. And then if any metrics are found, they are then, we want to run through them all, label and structure them properly, and then print them out into a log file down here. And that's where we're defining it here, just in the Puppet module under the log file. And then we just want to open the log file and write the whole report or messages into it, and then just write the file and then close it. And that's essentially all you need to do.
So in terms of actually kind of deploying this report processor, now you've written it, you ultimately need to deploy it into your environment, within a module. So you can see there, RD Publisher, Puppet Relational module. You need to set up your Puppet.conf. So you can have multiple report processors there. You can see, the normal standard is to go to PuppetDB. We've got Puppet Data Connector there, and Relatio as our example. And then ultimately when it runs, this is the kind of data you'd see coming out, written to that file. So as we said, there's kind of a lot of use cases within this in terms of going to these, these kind of observability platforms. And I think that's always been our biggest worry is people do that kind of first thing of kind of getting all that data somewhere. The sort of Terry Pratchett's phrase of, people thought they were making progress because they were measuring things, but all they were doing was writing it down. And that, that's what we kind of really want to highlight here is, you've got so many opportunities in terms of, we were obviously just writing out a file. There's lots of options from that, and there's lots of ways to manipulate that data. I would highlight that because, as reports are running, report processes are running, it's holding that JRuby. So there is advice in the documentation to say, if you have network connectivity problems, or something's going to take a while, you just got to be aware of how that will affect your size and capacity. So yeah, are there any questions?
You've got Prometheus and Grafana listed up there. Have you seen any report processors interacting with either of those?
Yeah, so there's definitely a Vox released report processor for Prometheus that kind of does Prometheus node exporter, so that basically are able to have a report processor that feeds a Prometheus node exporter, and then that's quite a common way to actually feed almost anything. And pushing my luck here, there is this kind of talk comes off the fact that we did Puppet Data Connector, which we mentioned, which is an enterprise solution, but we're just trying to highlight the underneath, which is available to everyone. Using that Prometheus exporter is a good way to kind of export to anything that can accept a node exporter.
And that's separate from just having the monitoring tool read the normal state stuff, because that's what I've seen done for years and years and years, is things just reading the state.yaml or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's another approach. It's just that, with the report processes, you can often kind of manipulate what information you really want to be sent.
Okay.
Because depending on some organisations, I work in those kind of places that say Splunk is our observability tool.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, we want all this data going to Splunk, and lots of organisations have that lockdown of only the Puppet teams allowed on, whatever you're using as your console view. So it's just that way of making sure you've got the flexibility to export.
Reports have more data also, summaries and stuff, which is just numbers, right? Where the reports has every line of text, which is a transaction in Puppet terms. So that stuff is all in the report. So you can make a report saying failed. These are 5 resources that failed. Blah blah. That's what the report is. Unless you go parsing the log.
I mean, is this running on an agent or the master?
It's on the master. So that again, that's just where you have to be careful with the scaling ultimately, because it's not letting go of that JRuby until it's all finished.
The master or the compiler. The master or the compiler.
The master or the compiler. Yes, you're right.
Whichever it's connected to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll Actually, just had the discussion of, heck, where do we share the slides to? We will share the slides out and also share some links because, you know, the actual specification for what you get out of event data is documented, you know, so you can kind of have a good look and figure out what you want. But otherwise, just thanks very much.